Okay, so class, we are going to learn about the life and work of Paulo Freire. I don't have a picture of him here, but you'll see him in the video clip later. Okay, so Paulo Freire was born September 19th, 1921 in Recife, Brazil, and he focused all of his studies about the urban poor in Brazil and adult education. So he died in 1997 of a heart attack in Brazil. Just a little bit of background about him. He grew up during the Great Depression. His parents were middle class, but they suffered greatly from that. And so he learned what it was like to be hungry and to be poor. And so he, from that, decided that he wanted to make that his life goal to help get rid of hunger and poor and try and educate the urban poor. So he studied law and philosophy at the University of Recife in Brazil, and he was married and had 5 children. Okay, so while he was working at the university, he worked as a Portuguese instructor, teaching Portuguese out in the rural urban areas. And so while he was doing that, he was reading the works of Karl Marx, Martirian, Bernanos, and Meunier, all Catholic educators are huge influences in the Catholic Church, and so between the 4 of them, he came up with his own educational philosophy. Once he became a parent, it was his children that helped him come up with his educational theories, and so he devoted his life to studying educational theories after he passed the bar, because he didn't really want to practice law. He wanted to focus on helping the urban poor in Brazil. So once he passed his bar, he was offered a job as a welfare official, and later became the director of the Department of Education and Culture of Social Service in the state of Pernambuco, which is in Brazil. And while doing that, he got his doctorate from the University of Recife. So that was in 1959 that he received that. So then, during the 1960s, Brazil was going through quite the political uproar, and so he made it his mission as being part of the University of Recife's Cultural Extension Services Director to go out to the urban poor to help the illiterate. So what he and his crew would do was go out and use dialogue as a way of teaching the adult urban poor. And so with his group, they could get illiterate people literate in as little as 30 hours with their methods. I don't exactly know the methods. I tried looking them up, but I couldn't really find anything in the research that I was looking at. But it seems really interesting if you can make somebody literate in as little as 30 hours. But unfortunately, due to his work and the work of his coworkers and such, it was very radical. So he was eventually jailed and exiled from there and wasn't allowed to go back. So he did most of his research while he was in Chile. So he started writing in 1964, because that's when he was put in jail for 7 months. He started writing Education as the Practice of Freedom. In this book, was an analysis of his failure to effect change in Brazil. And as I said, it had to be completed in Chile because he was exiled from there. So later, towards the end of 1960, his work brought him into contact with a new culture that changed his thought significantly. He was invited to become a guest professor at the Harvard University. So he left Latin America to come to the U.S. to see what American culture was like and how that worked here. So he was a visiting professor at Harvard Center for Studies in Education and Development, and was also a fellow at the Center of Study in Developmental Social Change. So while he was doing that, he started, noticing the political uproar here in the 60s with Vietnam and such. So he came up with a new idea of the American political scene really woke him up, and he started to research and found a new way about studying political power and the power of people within a country and during political uproar. So he came up with a new repression and exclusion of the powerless from economic and political life that was not limited to third world countries. He showed that this still happens not just in third world countries, but it happens also in the US. He extended his definition of the third world from a geographical concern to a political concept, which was kind of interesting, I thought. So a lot of his stuff has to deal with political change and social structure. So then once he started doing that, he began writing and researching about political oppression. And so then he wrote his most famous work called The Pedagogy of the Oppressed, which was written in 1970. And as I said, it's his most famous piece. It's used as one of the most quoted educational texts throughout Latin America, Africa, and Asia, just from his points of view and such. He argues for a system of education that emphasizes learning as an act of culture and freedom. So he focuses on the idea that you can learn, you can do what you want as a community, as a social change, as opposed to just a personal change. It's how to really change a country and everything. So he has two stages which he talks about education. And the first stage is which people become aware of conscientized oppression through praxis that transforms that state. And the second stage builds upon the conscientization and the praxis, which I'll go into what those are. So his theory has six little parts, or there was multiple concepts and ideas that he came up with in this book, and so I figured these were the most relevant for us today and for his political theory, or not his political theory, but educational theory. Banking education is a method of education that passive learners use to receive deposits of pre-selected or ready-made knowledge. And with this knowledge, the learner's mind is seen as an empty vault in which the riches are, it's filled with the riches of knowledge. So the idea that you're filling a vault, or your brain, with the riches of education. So that's what he feels banking education is. His sort of sub-genre, I guess, would be liberatory education, and that's what I said when he was trying to help the urban poor. And so this as a definition is education that encourages learners to challenge and change the world, not merely uncritically adapt themselves to it. The content and the purpose of liberatory education is the collective responsibility of learners, teachers, and the community alike who, through dialogue, seek political as well as economic and personal empowerment. So, as I said, they focus on social struggles and how you can come together to be a better society. Then conscientization, I don't know if I'm saying the word right, but
I think it's more conscience. Do you say the word conscience in it?
Yeah, there's conscience in it, but
okay. So let's see what the definition is and see how it fits.
Yeah. Is an ongoing process by which the learner moves towards critical consciousness. So, as you said. So that's the definition of that. And then the culture of silence goes to the political oppression where you're not allowed to say certain things. So that's why he used dialogue as his way of helping the illiterate become literate. And he, as I said, focused on adult education. But this model is used all over.
It's in use right now in Mexico. They have new soap operas to address the issue of unwanted pregnancies, or because there is developed, because of the issue of not being able to use birth control, women have refused to have sex, and there's this huge thing happening in South America to try to bring relationships back together so that there's not this battle over human sexuality, and they're doing it through the soap operas. It's a very interesting dynamic, but it's coming from this.
And then I just wanted to explain the idea of a praxis, because it was part of one of the other definitions. And a praxis is a complex activity by which individuals create culture and society and become critically conscious human beings. So this is a cycle effect. So you're using your education or your ideas to create this sort of praxis. And then the last part is empowerment, because his biggest goal was to empower people and to get them to stand up and to get them to actually be able to read and write to make a difference in the political structure in Brazil, because it was so oppressed during the 1960s, which is the time when he was, studying all of his things. And so then I have a video clip of him, one of the last ones, and it's in Portuguese, but there is subtitles. So, and it's about his.
You should be able to put it on the big screen. You want to click it?
Até de ponto de vista do processo comum, eu não posso chegar lá a não ser a partir de cá. E se cá e aqui é exatamente o ponto em que eu me acho para falar de lá, então é daqui que eu parto e não de lá. Eu respeito o direito que ele tem de dicotomizar, mas eu não aceito a dicotomia. Quer dizer, então isso coloca a questão da minha fé, da minha crença, que indiscutivelmente interfere na minha forma de pensar. Poucos dias antes de Darcy Ribeiro morrer, eu ouvi uma linda entrevista dele, que deve ter sido uma das últimas que ele deu, em que ele falava dessa questão, dessa passagem. Não? E ele dizia com muita seriedade, com muita amorosidade, que isso quer dizer porque ele foi um homem sério, e um homem corajoso, um homem que lidou com a vida morta de maneira poética, inclusive. E ele dizia, olha, se a questão da fé passasse mesmo.
No, this goes on for 6 minutes. I don't know if I want something, but as you can see, he's quite the man here. There is also a Freire Institute that you can research, and they have video clips of other people that believe in the same things as him, but they focus on his foundation of, urban poor and education. So I also have a song that kind of correlates with everything. How do I get to the pipe?
The bottom, and then it's the right.
Oh.
All right. You doing a presentation for me?
Yeah.
Okay, and so the song I came up with is called Just Stand Up. And since he was a big, believer in that people can, stand up for what they want or do what they want, it's within themselves that they can really do it. And being that, these people were poor, this song, we'll play the first part through the chorus, then you can see all the lyrics. It's here, and you can see that, you just have to struggle through it to actually, learn. And I was coming more on the illiterate people, so that's what this song.
Okay. All right, we'll call him. I'll see you next week. I'll have all of them.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dixon.
Okay, so I think that just basically sums up that you can do it. You just have to pick yourself up, and I think that's what Freire believed in the urban poor. So that is Paulo Freire.
Now he's a new name to most of you, right?